Hello, folks, and welcome to your day weather podcast on this Thursday, the 25th of May. I'm meteorologist Mark Huer, and today's podcast is being brought to you by Cowboy State Daily and Whiteout. Well, folks, you're going to want to keep the rain gear handy. A moist and unstable and very mild south to southwest flow is going to dominate the weather pattern through the end of the month, so that means about a week, and potentially even longer than that, maybe into early June. Daily heavy showers and strong thunderstorms a threat in many areas, but what about severe weather? We'll touch on that here in this video this morning. Significant rainfall amounts in some areas as well, which will continue to improve drought conditions in the southern high plains, but will also continue to create some flooding concerns along rivers and streams throughout much of the Rocky Mountain West. Is Lake Powell still rising? We'll talk about that and how much more snow there is to melt still in today's podcast. Well, last week at this time, we talked about Lake Powell, and it has been rising not only since last week, but for about the last month and a half, and it is now over 3,550 feet, which is putting it well above, over 10 feet above last year's high water mark that occurred in the early to middle part of July. And specifically over the last couple of weeks, Lake Powell has risen an astonishing 16.55 feet, with inflows over the last few days topping 70,000 cubic feet per second over the course of the day, with outflows ranging still in that 17 to 18,000 cubic feet, sending more water down towards Lake Mead. And averages for May, well, they are being smashed for inflows. The all-time average since filled, which was in the early 70s, is at about 35,000 cubic feet for the day. We're pushing there in the low 70s, and outflows with the increase is still increasing as well. And we're still expecting Lake Powell to rise a total of about 71 feet from its low water mark earlier this year by the time stream flows start to peak and then decrease later this summer. How about snow water equivalent and remaining snowpack? Well, along and west of the divide, still doing pretty good as a whole, especially still throughout the Great Basin areas and central California. Some of these numbers are skewed though, for normally there's no snow left at all. So even a little bit of snow is really skewing these numbers. So anything you're seeing in the several 100% range of normal or higher doesn't mean there's a ton of snow yet to melt, but in the more significant drainages here across sections of Colorado, still over 100 to even 200%. Likewise through much of Utah and then southwestern Wyoming, sections of Idaho, then here through the Great Basin. So lots of snow melt, but the northern Rockies and locations along and east of the divide where snowpack wasn't as heavy this winter and there's been significant runoff, we are starting to see that rapid decrease. What can we expect for the next several days? Here we have our 500 millibar chart showing us the predominant wind direction and also atmospheric energy, about 20,000 feet in the atmosphere. And we have lots of ups and downs and high pressures and low pressure systems scattered all about the lower 48 and the western northern hemisphere, and affecting weather across the western United States is this trough of low pressure out across the west and then Great Basin area, and that's going to be pushing the moisture and instability up into the Rockies and Great Basin and bringing some moisture and energy. Likewise, we have a southerly flow out of the Gulf along and east of the divide thanks to low pressure here in the southeastern United States, and we have a couple big areas of high pressure that'll be helping to keep the weather pattern fairly stagnant over the next several days. And this chart is valid for this morning. Here is Saturday morning. We can see that trough still out across the west, high pressure out into the Great Lakes area, still low pressure here in the southeast. So not a lot changing with the flow throughout the western United States, and this is going to continue to be pumping mild temperatures, no excessive heat, but readings will be running a few to several degrees above average across the western half of the United States, and also keeping that daily chance of shower and thunderstorm activity. And with this being a holiday weekend stretching all the way out to Monday, we've still got this elongated trough across the western United States and a lot of little low pressure systems dotting the northern sections. With this weather pattern staying in place, we're going to continue to see additional moisture and instability working its way all across the Great Basin, Rocky Mountain West, and High Plains. And that's going to bode well for above average precipitation in many areas as we head into and through the latter part of May and the beginning of June. Let's take a look at the precipitation totals over the last 7 days and locations across sections of portions of Nebraska, southeast Wyoming, much of Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. The southern High Plains and Southern Plains really picked up some needed moisture, for it's still this area here that has the ongoing worst of the drought that has plagued the region over the last several years, and not as much moisture out in the Great Basin, but still a spattering of showers and storms and some good moisture that's been needed up here in the northern Rockies and Plains, for it has been pretty dry across sections of northern Idaho and Montana for much of the spring season, but some needed moisture falling up there. And what about the next 7 days? Well, here's a little bit of a closer look at the zoomed in western United States. And as long as you're not in the southern Great Basin in the southwestern United States, we're going to be seeing a favorable pattern for areas of on and off, moderate to some heavy rainfall, continuing to bring beneficial and needed rains across the northern and central Rockies and also the High Plains. And we could be looking at locations even picking up a little bit more than 2 to maybe 3 inches in areas from the scattered natures of the showers and thunderstorms, none of which will be moving too fast over the next several days and even week, as we're not going to have really strong prevailing winds in the mid-levels of the atmosphere pushing the storms. And this is the GFS output for the next 7 days. And what does this mean for anomalies from normal, a departure than normal? Well, the central and southern High Plains, southern Rockies, and then out into the southern plains themselves, generally a little bit above average precipitation, but we can likely even expand the green areas and the above average precipitations into much of western South Dakota, sections of Montana, much of Wyoming, and also out towards Utah and the northwestern sections of Colorado. And this might be overdone some as well here in the southwestern United States. Favorable weather pattern for additional showers and storms, and temperatures over the next several days going to be running generally about 3 to 6 degrees above average for the end of May. And here is that temperature anomaly for the next 7 days. A lot of that 3 to 6 degree above average temperature anomaly outside of the northern plains up in the Dakotas and eastern Montana, where we could be looking at departures as much as 10 degrees or so above average in the next several days, thanks to that southwest flow. And here across the southwestern United States and also some of the southern plains, looking cooler than average as we're not having building high pressure in our building early summer heat low that starts to develop many times of the year as we get into early June here in the southwestern United States. Severe weather chances here for today, well, a little bit of a marginal chance across the central and southern plains and on the east side of the Rockies. Likewise, up here in the central Rockies, marginal chance means might see a couple of severe storms, but the likelihood is not good, with most of the activity staying of the garden variety or strong showers and thunderstorms. And for Friday, a little bit better belt of some potential marginal storms, a little better daytime heating across the Front Range and eastern plains of Montana, Wyoming, the eastern Dakotas, Nebraska, and then eastern Colorado. But until we get into that slight, the yellow or the enhanced orange severe weather outlooks, not much going on in the severe weather department. Continued good news there, but we do historically move into the severe weather season as we kick off June across the central and southern High Plains. So it will be something to watch for, as early June is the typical start and the historical start of one of our most severe weather patterns in this area outlined. Thanks for watching today, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.